Dzień dobry, cześć, hello. Welcome, guys, to the Polskast, episode 13. I'm here, joined with my friend and co-host, Phil. How are you doing, Phil?
Trev, I'm doing good, man. I don't know about this episode 13. 13, it's not a lucky number in America. I don't know about in Poland, but definitely not a lucky number here.
It has to be. It
Yeah.
has to be if it's Polskast, right?
Speaking in numbers, you sent me a message the other day saying you've been in Poland now for 100 days.
That's right.
Congratulations.
That was a smooth segue. Yeah.
Thank you.
No, yeah, it's been 100 days since I've been here, it's crazy to think of it. It's been so, it's just gone by, right?
Yeah.
So fast. So,
Is
yeah.
is this the longest you've been in Poland, or you've been in Poland longer than this previously?
I think I've been in Poland a little bit longer than this
Okay.
previously. Yeah.
So once you've hit your longest time, consecutive time being in Poland, then we'll really have to celebrate at that time.
Yeah. Yeah, totally. What's the longest you've stayed in Poland for one stay?
2 weeks.
Really, that's it.
I'm an American with an American vacation schedule. I really can't stay any longer than that.
Right, right. Yeah, but it's been 100 days and haven't regretted anything. It's been pretty great.
Yeah, you've been
Pretty happy.
fitting in smoothly, getting used to things. Yeah. Like I
Yeah.
said, one thing I've been enjoying is you've been sending, you speaking in Polish to various people recordings. And so I've been enjoying listening to those, listening to your Polish get a little bit better every time,
Yeah.
You definitely feel
Yeah,
like you're settling in nicely.
Well, I have to say this on the podcast. I was sending you video clips of me talking to taxi cab drivers in Polish, and then you sent me. I believe you were the one that texted me. You're like, you know what, you need to turn this into a video,
Yeah,
right?
absolutely.
You said that?
Yeah.
Yeah. So I think within my next video or so, that's gonna be the video. So dedicated to you.
I'm looking forward to that one. So one thing, when you told me how many months ago that you were moving to Poland, one thing that I kind of got excited about was that, I hear about how a lot of things are in Poland, but there's plenty of things I've never experienced myself. And so
Right.
now here we are, you're in Poland, you get to experience a lot of these things, and you get to tell me, even better than from like my wife's point of view, because you're coming at it from an American point of view, and you can kind of tell me
Right, it's a bit
how
different.
these things are. We can kind of go through the differences between America and Poland, right? I think just the other day we hit one of those major differences between America and Poland, where
Yeah.
in America we have Halloween, and in Poland they have All Saints Day.
Yeah, I sent you a picture of one of the graveyards with a bunch of lanterns and all that stuff in it. Yeah, so I've spent only summers and winters in Poland. So I only know those holidays and things and traditions and stuff. So when it comes to spring and autumn, I don't. So yeah, this was the first All Saints Day I've ever participated in. And it was pretty cool. Pretty cool. We went to this graveyard and I mean pretty cool as in like not cool death, like with death and stuff like that.
As an American, I understand where you're coming with on that one.
I mean, it was.
I guess
it was
interesting
cool.
is maybe a better word you're looking for.
It was interesting. That's
Yeah.
right. It
Yeah.
was very interesting. Yes. And yeah, it was probably the most like gothic European thing I've gotten to participate in. So yeah, there's candles all in the graveyards and all of that. It's my girlfriend's like great grandfather was buried there. It's like one of the oldest actually in Poland. It's like the second oldest. But yeah, and our graveyards are different in general too. So the graves are much closer.
I think even people are on top of each other there as well.
Yeah,
They can be.
yeah. It's stuff like that too. Multiple people per grave, and then just trying to recall this, and yeah. So it's like you can also because there's portions where you're on the main strip, the main walking path. But if you want to get to the middle, where there's this big cluster of graves, you kind of have to walk like in these extremely narrow portions in between the graves. That's where you have to walk. So, in the U.S., I'm pretty sure it's like kind of, isn't it rude to kind of walk really close to the grave or something like that?
Because I think you shouldn't really be walking where the casket might actually be. Right.
Yeah.
Usually, there's enough space that you can. Okay, there's the tombstone, there's the casket, and you kind of walk around, and there's like a little path in between that you can. If you stay in there, then you're pretty much not walking on top of somebody.
Yeah. Here, the path is even tighter.
Okay.
So, but yeah, we were just kind of looking at stuff, looking at different graves, and then there's different areas of religion and stuff like that too. And then there was even like the kind of like an area of the unknown soldier type of stuff. So there's like crosses, and it just says like unknown soldier, and obviously in Polish, and then died 1918 or whatever year.
Right.
So there's a lot of that, and then I saw some, I guess, Russian or Ukrainian names on some stones, and I think it's like in the Orthodox section. So
Okay.
yeah, it was kind of cool to see. It's kind of pretty actually with the fall leaves and the lanterns. It's kind of pretty.
Yeah.
Not
That's one big difference I've noticed from what I've seen of it between America and Poland. Is here we only typically just put flowers on tombstones, where over there they have the lanterns as well that they light.
Yeah, and then Americans don't yearly visit like their family's graves or anything like that.
No.
I mean, they just see them whenever they want to, or whatever, right? I mean,
it's more like when you feel like
it, right?
Or like, and I think, I think the last time we went, my daughter started asking me about my grandparents and what were they like and everything like that, and I'm like, my grandparents are buried where my parents live now, up north from here. So while we were there visiting them one time, I took her over, and I'm like, okay, here's where they're buried and everything like that. But yeah, it's not like a yearly ritual like it is in America or in Poland. I know, like I definitely think in Poland in general, from what I've seen, they generally visit the cemetery much more often, and they take care of it much better. Like the places look all like nice and upkept and everything like that. Where you get to a lot of these older grave sites in America, and they're just like deteriorating, down to nothing.
Dilapidated. Yeah. Here you can also pay like the cemetery people to like clean it off and even put flowers on the grave actually.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. But yeah, it's kind of cool though to visit like your family's graves and all that, because I feel like in the US I was thinking as I was walking, like my girlfriend and I are just talking about graves and death and stuff like that. And I was just thinking, like, in the U.S., I never really talked about death that much or visited a cemetery with the family, or done anything really like that. So it was kind of cool. It was kind of cool in a weird way that there's like this recognition of your ancestors, and then it's also like, yeah, I'm going to be down there pretty soon.
Right. So let me ask you this, because I know this happens a lot in America. I don't know if it happens in Poland or not. A lot of times when you're at a cemetery, you'll see, like, if it's a married couple and one of them has passed away, you will see the tombstone for the person who's actually buried there, and then the person is still living. Their name will already be, like, they're buried next to each other. The tombstone will already have their name on and everything, what year they were born, and all that's left is to put what year they died. Does that happen over there in Poland as well?
I did see, I believe, one of those. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
It's always like kind of like, out of the whole thing about cemetery, that was always the thing that freaked me out a little bit. It's like, here you are, a living person visiting your wife, whatever, and there's your tombstone sitting right there, already up and erected and everything. All that's left is the year that you're gonna die. Like it's kind of weird, but yeah.
There's also, I don't. You probably won't know this, as most Americans wouldn't and probably shouldn't, but I learned the other day too, when we're just going to talk about death between two countries. It's going to be such a happy episode. Yeah, so if your dog dies, you cannot bury it in your property in Poland.
Oh, weird.
You have to go to a specific place and either get it like properly buried there, or burned or whatever.
Wow.
Is there something like that in the U.S.? I don't
Actually,
think so.
it's funny that you say that because just the other day, we were my neighborhood gathered together for a little get together, and one of the neighbors was telling us that if you go into the woods from their property, you will find like a pet cemetery from the previous owner where they had buried like
Really?
their animals and everything like that.
Yeah.
I definitely have. I mean, I guess it depends on where you live in America. I think like people who live in the cities or suburbs or things like that are definitely probably going to take it to a vet and have it properly taken care of. But I could definitely see people who live out in the country with huge pieces of land just simply burying it out, in somewhere in the ground and everything like that.
Yeah, and obviously it's one of those things where it's like it's one of those laws that are probably going to get it broken anyways,
Right.
like here or anywhere, right? But
Right.
and then the other one is that in Poland, if you die, you have to go into a cemetery. I don't think you can't be cremated and then just be in a urn of ashes.
Okay.
You like sitting on the mantle or whatever,
Right.
or like whatever. Yeah, you can't do that. You have to be like in a cemetery, apparently.
Okay. I guess probably that's more
Do
how
you know
they're.
the laws about that in the U.S.?
I mean, you can definitely be cremated in America, but because I think it's a big difference between. I don't know if that's like a. I'd have to look into it if that's a religious thing, and just how closely the Catholic religion is tied to the government in Poland. And it might.
But not just cremated, but that you can keep the urns in your house.
Okay, you have to do something
Yeah.
with it. I gotcha.
Yeah, because in Poland they have to go to a cemetery.
Got it. That's definitely. I mean,
Yeah.
people keeping the urns in America is definitely a thing. I think it.
Yeah.
As sick as it sounds, it's used a lot of times in comedy on TV, movies and stuff like that. The urn is sitting on the mantle
Yeah.
or whatever, right? They use that,
And then like someone spills the
and
ashes
something
on
spills
someone.
it. Yeah,
Right.
right. So it's definitely like a thing here. I don't, whatever people choose to do is their own business.
Yeah. And then I was walking. So after the graveyard experience,
Uh-huh.
I walked into the old town, and there was just pretty much just like kids. Actually, I think I was the oldest. I felt old because I think I was the oldest person just walking around
First time for
the
everything.
old town. Yeah, and it was all a bunch of, I guess, high schoolers,
Okay.
actually dressed in like makeup and like costumes and stuff. But they were all just like smoking cigarettes outside of McDonald's and Burger King. So.
Okay. So these kids you saw, do you think? Because I know when I was in Poland this last trip, there was definitely kids dressed like in goth-looking looks. Do you think it was just a continuation of that, or were they specifically dressing up because it was around Halloween in America?
I think it was kind of like the gothic type of kids that were engaging themselves in the holiday. I don't think
Okay.
it was just like regular people and stuff. I think it was kind of like the emo goth kids,
Right.
like taking part in Halloween.
Okay.
I don't think it was like the normal jocks or anyone else.
Right. I actually popped on your Discord for the first time, like in a month or something like that, and
Thanks for being away. Thanks.
and asked them what they all think of Halloween. And
Yeah.
because I was like, I know specifically in Poland, the older generation does not like it at all. Even I assume on your Discord it trends a little bit younger, and so I kind of wanted to get a feel for
Yeah.
them, and they were just kind of like whatever. They were like, we don't really like it, we don't really dislike it. If people want to celebrate it, we don't really care.
Yeah.
It's just kind of like whatever. The biggest thing I noticed from sitting in America and looking at Poland in terms of Halloween was I saw a lot of celebrities, like Polish actors and actresses, had dressed up for Halloween to put a picture on Instagram or whatever.
For like a party, like they were going.
They're
to a party
they were
or
at
something?
parties, like costume parties and stuff like that. That was
Yeah.
the biggest thing I saw.
I think as the years go on here, it's just going to be a party thing.
Yeah.
Yeah, for sure. I don't think it's never going to get adopted to the point where it's like you can just knock on anyone's,
Right.
doors with their lights on or whatever, and they're going to give you candy.
I've even noticed the evolution of America or of Halloween here. in America. Now, as we previously mentioned, I now live out in the country, and I previously lived in a more city-like environment. It's definitely a different vibe out here in the country.
Yeah.
In the city, it was it was kind of like you walked around the complex. Maybe every few houses there was a light on. Most people are not really celebrating it anymore.
So for Polish people, if you're taking part in like trick or treating or whatever, and you want candy from people, you have to wait to see if like the person's front porch light is on.
That's usually the indicator
to go up there.
Usually, usually the houses we look for have some kind of Halloween decoration out front, like pumpkins or something like that, and their lights are on. Yeah. Their front, specifically their door light is on, right?
Yeah.
So, I mean, but there was so many, where we used to live, there's so many houses that you find enough people participating that, the kids get enough candy or whatever. But there, definitely there was more people not participating than participating. But out here in the country, so like I said, I live on a street of maybe 20 houses, something like that. Right? It's a cul-de-sac, so there's no, it's just one street with everybody on it. And we got a text message from one of them saying, okay, at 3:00, everybody's going to this one house, right? And basically it was basically snacks for all the kids, get them fueled up, I guess, to go trick-or-treating. So there were snacks for the kids, there was snacks for the adults, some drinks for the adults, right? And we all just kind of hung out there for an hour. The kids already had their costumes on. A lot of the adults were wearing costumes as well. Then so that was like I said, that was like for 2 hours, I would say we did that. Then what they did was all the adults went back to their houses, and maybe like two of the adults took all the kids up and down the street, just our street, and they all did the trick or treating with the with all the neighbors basically and everything like that, right?
That's kind of cool.
Yeah. Then once that finished, down at the bottom of the mountain, we live up like on a little mountain, and down at the bottom of the mountain is like the main street for the city. And what they did was the fire department closed off the two ends of the street, and they let kids just roam freely up and down the street trick-or-treating. And like on that street, the people really got into it, and they got their houses all decorated up. A lot of them were sitting outside with like little fire pits, and they were having some drinks and just enjoying and talking to each other while handing out candy. The really fun part was, I guess because of COVID last year for trick-or-treating, what a lot of people did was they took like a lot of PVC pipe or whatever, and they ran it from where they were standing down to the kids so they could, socially distance hand out candy, right? And so I think they did it last year because of the thing, but the kids enjoyed it so much because it's coming down like this long slide or whatever, right? And they hold their bags out and they try to catch it. And so they were doing it again this year, and my daughter loved it, They're like, okay. Yeah. They had basically, because these houses are like up on a hill kind of thing, and they ran these long chutes down to the street, and they would mark on the street where the kids should stand, right? And so then the kids would stand there with the thing, and the candy would come flying out, and they try to catch it in their bags. It was really neat.
That's funny.
I mean, but Halloween is purely a holiday for kids in its purest sense of it,
I think so last time we talked about God and religion, right. And this time we're going to be talking about Halloween. Which, I've talked to a few people about Halloween here, and they're just like, it's a Satanist day and stuff like that. So I don't even bring it up. I don't mention it. I don't talk about it.
I mean, to be honest with you, I think about Halloween like the day before Halloween. It's not like... It's not like Christmas where you're like, you got to plan that, or Thanksgiving, you got to plan that way in advance. You're thinking about, I can't wait till this. I'm just like, the day before Halloween, I'm like, crap, I need to go buy a bag of candy to have in my house just in case kids come over.
Yeah.
And, then I got to go out for like an hour, take my kid trick-or-treating, And then we come back and my daughter yells at me not to eat any of the candy. And I'm like, I can go buy 20 bags of candy. I don't need to eat your candy. That's much more important to you than it is to me. Yeah, well, once you hit a certain age, it's kind of like whatever. It's not really that big a deal. It's like I said, you're more doing it because the kids enjoy going out and doing it than actually in a holiday for adults. Or anything.
What were you dressed up as?
I didn't dress up. I was actually surprised when I got to the party that how many adults were dressed up, and
some people are really into it still,
And I was kind of like, The problem is all my recent costumes have been Polish related. I'm like, so nobody here
Right. So
would
no one's gonna
completely
know.
I go dressed up as Swabomir, and everybody's
That's,
like, "Who the hell are
that's
you?"
what I was thinking. And just be like, what?
Yeah, exactly. So
Swabomir?
I think
Who is
a lot.
that?
I think a lot of my costumes would be lost on a lot of people. I could take or leave Halloween in general, but I definitely be interested in experiencing this All Saints Day in Poland. I think eventually,
Yeah.
I'd like to be there for that and to experience it. And
Yeah,
actually,
that's pretty cool.
it reminds me, not to just jump back to about death again, but I feel like I need to for a second, because it led to a conversation that my wife and I had the other day, and I think I shared it with you and JT, was figuring out which country we're gonna be buried in, right? Eventually,
Right.
right? Like, because it's like, for my wife and I right now, it's not such a straightforward plan, because I'm like,
Yeah.
I was saying to her, I'm like, listen, I'm like, if you pass, I'm like, if she passed away today, God forbid, right? I told her, I'm like, obviously I'd go bury you in Poland. She's like, you can bury me in America, it's fine. I'm like, you don't want to be buried in America, I'm like, you want to be buried in Poland, I'm going to bury you in Poland.
Right.
But then I lead into a situation. I'm like, well, how the hell do I get buried in Poland in that case next to her? Like in that kind of situation, right? Maybe someday when we're all retired and everybody's legally in Poland and stuff like that, it's a little bit more straightforward. But yeah, I think JT and I told you, or like, this is the conversations you have in the house when you're older. Right.
Right. Yeah. Personally, I have no clue where I'm going to be buried.
Yeah.
Honestly, I don't know if I want to be buried. I think maybe this is just some young, youthful, hippie idea. I don't know, but I honestly think I just want to be burned, just be ashes, and I want to be tossed somewhere. I think. So.
Yeah. No, I mean, listen. If nothing else, if somebody wants to, make me ashes and then go sprinkle me out in the villages in Poland, that's fine with me. Right? I mean, ultimately, you don't care, you're dead. Right?
Right.
But I think that would be a fitting ending, right? Even if somebody managed to pull that off. But yeah. Let's switch to a happier topic.
Yeah. Let's switch to language learning.
Yeah, I was gonna say, it's the last month of our 90-day link challenge.
Yeah. And are you in third place or?
No, I'm in second. I think you and I have pulled.
Okay.
We pulled away from the pack a little bit. Yeah.
Yeah.
We have the stamina that a lot of the other members of our challenge don't have.
Yeah, I find that there's just a couple people that take like one day a week and they'll just study everything for like, it seems like hours if you look at the leaderboards. Mm-hmm. And then I think I just go like just a little bit each day consistently.
That's what I've been doing. This is like because on Link it keeps track of the streak, how many days in a row you've hit the target for that day, and I think I'm in like the 70s now. This is like the longest.
Yeah, it's the longest
streak I've had in a long time. Yeah.
Yeah.
So I've been hitting up a lot of different material on there. I know you and I have been talking about the Polish with John podcast. We've both been listening to that on there.
Yeah.
He's got, like we were both saying before we started recording, we both got the jingle of his podcast stuck in our head now because we hear it.
Yeah. Every time. And so for Link, you were doing Dave's book, right?
Yeah.
You were importing his book, and you finished that, I think, right?
I did. I got it sitting here. Actually, let me see. Let's see, both so you can see it on here. Yeah.
To jest bardzo polskie.
It actually helped me because, and I did a video about this on my channel recently. Mm-hmm. So like I think last November, December, something like that, Dave announced that on his channel that he wrote a book. Mm-hmm. So I remember at the time I had to, like, I couldn't order it right away. They weren't accepting PayPal, I think it was. They were only they're selling it out of Poland. They're only accepting local payments. And so I emailed the guy and I'm like, hey, I'm an American. I'd like to buy it. Do you have the option for PayPal? And they're like, oh, we'll set it up and we'll let you know as soon as we have it. So I got the book like in January, something like that. Mm-hmm. And I was kind of reading it a little slowly, very slowly. but then, when you and I decided to do this challenge, I really kind of kicked it into high gear,
Yeah.
and I did manage to finish the book. I think saying.
And so for those of you who don't know, the challenge that we're talking about is just using the Link software every single day, which is just a language learning software. And
Right.
yeah.
I think we found at this point it's been the most useful for us.
For basic, intermediate, and advanced, it'll take you the entire way. And I think it's just something to add to your routine to always have. You know, it's not like all said and done the only thing, but I think it's just something that should always be there.
Right. The basic premise of it is you're reading material and you're listening at the same time, and it when you're coming across words you don't know, it tells you what it is, and then it marks words that you know, and blah blah blah. But this book is like 331 pages, so this is definitely the longest book in Polish that I've read at this point. I think you would ask me on that film that I made where I kind of talked about the book. What other books have I read, or if this was my first book or something like that. And I would say this is my first adult book meant for adults.
I mean, I haven't done that. Yeah.
Yeah. Most of the books, we have tons of kids books that we had bought for my daughter. And I definitely have grabbed some of those and have read some of those.
I can just see you in the corner of the house reading.
I think there was the book Lota w ulicy Awanturników, right? It's like a kid's book, and I think when I finished that book, I posted on Instagram or something like that. I was like, I don't care that this is a kid's book. It's all in Polish, and I finished it myself. So whatever. But this one. So like I said, I have the physical book here. When you and I started this challenge, he also was selling the ebook right? By that point. Yeah. So I bought the ebook in addition, and then I imported it into Link, and then that's how I finished reading it, was using it in there. It's an interesting book. Like, I have to say, like, I watched Dave's videos. A lot of them are like hit or miss for me. Some of them I find interesting. Some of them like not so much. Like,
well, he makes a lot. He makes a lot of videos. I'm pretty sure.
Yeah, almost every day,
on
pretty
multiple
much.
channels. Yeah.
Yeah. So I like the things that bother me sometimes is when he makes videos teaching Polish people some of like the worst slang that we have over here in America. I'm just kind of like, why are you teaching them this? I'm like, maybe he's more saying it because he wants people. If it, part of understanding a language is not only you need to learn things to be able to say it, but if somebody says it to you, you need to understand what they're saying. But there was some of those videos he makes, and like he says like the slang word, and he's saying it like 100 times in the video, and I'm just like, oh my god, you're killing me right now. Yeah. But I have to say, after reading this book, I find Dave a lot more interesting than I did from just watching his videos. Mm-hmm. Right? Yeah. I think some of the story because I was telling you like some of the beginning, and you had told me about how like he came to America when he was like 5 years old.
Him and I have talked a few times. So
his parents had lived here maybe like a year and a half, something like that. They lived here for a while, and he was living with his grandparents in Poland before he actually came here. So, like, he went on like a long time without seeing his parents at all. Especially,
I think he said he was from like somewhere near Silesia. Is that right?
Yeah, something like that. Yeah. And so once he got here, he kind of just grew up in a Polish neighborhood, and like you said, so at the beginning, all of a sudden, it was like I've heard the story with some other, like my uncles specifically, parents or kids of immigrants, right? And like they kind of when the immigrants come here, they get in a very closed society. They kind of warn themselves off, and especially the kids don't notice that all of a sudden the kids go to school. And they're shocked that, like, what, everybody doesn't speak Polish? Everybody doesn't have gołąbki for lunch or whatever, It's like all of a sudden this whole new world is open to them, and so he went through a lot of that. But, it definitely helped me understand some things better, like specifically like with my wife and how her interactions with our daughter. Like, my wife acts like a lot of times like a traditional Polish parent, telling what to do this, do that, controlling trying to control every moment. Where, I found like me is, because I feel like I kind of parent how my father did, and I'm just kind of more like it's more like you follow my example, you don't follow my words, kind of thing. Right, it's like, right. A little bit more hands off, and just watch what I do, and instead of right. Telling them every little single thing to do all the time. Yeah. And he was saying that his mom was a lot like that, and just having him explain it, and like him trying to figure out why she was the way she was, and then him giving that explanation kind of definitely helped me out a little bit as well.
When did he come back to Poland? How old was he? Must have been sometime in high school, I'm guessing, right?
Yeah, so he made a few trips when he was in high school and stuff like that. He definitely talks about. It's funny too, also because his first few trips to Poland, how he describes them, sounds very similar to our first few trips to Poland. Because we didn't come to Poland similar to him. We didn't come to Poland as traditional tourists. We both came to Poland because we knew somebody, and it was definitely not a tourist type trip.
No, yeah.
And so when I could definitely it's funny as it is to say, because I said in my video, I'm not Polish, right? So obviously there's some differences, but also I can find a ton of similarities between how he describes his life, and going to the Poland the first time and stuff like that, and the stories he tells. I'm like, man, I feel like I'm just recalling all these things that happened to me when I was in a similar situation, even though it's different circumstances behind it, but definitely find himself in very similar circumstances or situations. The big one, so the big theme I feel of this book is that he's constantly saying that he doesn't feel 100% Polish, or 100% Polish when he's in Poland. He doesn't feel 100% American when he's in America, and I feel like in some ways my life has kind of evolved into this as well. There's definitely been, heck, we make this channel talking about this kind of stuff, the comparisons between Americans and Poland's all the time, right? And being somebody who's kind of got your feet in both waters, you can definitely see, okay, these things Poles do better, these things Americans do better.
Right.
And
I feel like I'm in the same boat, definitely.
Yeah, it's there's thousands of videos about these things. You've made plenty of them. JT's made plenty. I've even made some. Weddings are better in Poland.
Right.
Service is better in America. So he has that obvious stuff in there too. But just his general feeling about how he feels some ways. I definitely myself, I'll speak for myself. Definitely feel that way sometimes too. Especially having been to Poland a few times, I feel like. Now that when I'm just around your stereotypical Americans, I'll just come in I don't really feel as comfortable as I used
to.
Connect,
right?
Right. Yeah. And the same thing, but the same thing when I'm in Poland. Maybe it's mostly because of a language barrier at this point, right? And when you're all sitting around drinking and everybody starts speaking the slang and everything like that, and I don't quite understand. You can definitely find yourself even in Poland when you don't feel 100% comfortable as well, right? Because you're not keeping up with everything and everything like that.
Definitely.
So it's definitely this little in-between area that he kind of talks about, and I feel like I can definitely relate to what he's saying. So that's why I personally found that book so interesting, is the stories he tells, and the like you said, he does more than just simply tell stories. He gives his reasons why he thinks things are the way they are and everything like that. And I was just kind of there was a lot of things I'm like, oh yeah, right, okay, I get it now, and things like that. You and I and JT and we all talk about these things all the time, I don't think I would say I don't think either one of us are the same person as we were before we made our first trips to Poland.
Not at all. No, no way.
Yeah,
definitely not.
It would definitely, if we want to get into that a little bit, how do you think Poland in general has changed you? How do you think your girlfriend has changed you? Because obviously your girlfriend, my wife, has definitely had a larger influence on us than Poland in general.
1,000%. I'm living in another country now.
Right.
And that wouldn't have happened if I didn't meet her, right?
Yeah. But definitely, it's interesting to compare notes, I guess, and say, and like,
Right.
here's things I used to never do. Here's things I now do all the time, and I don't even think anything about it. You
Well,
got
I
anything
mean,
out the top of your head?
yeah, I mean, well, if we're just gonna talk food preferences, I mean, you weren't eating Polish food before, or
No.
probably drinking tea and all that,
Yeah. That was the
But
big thing. My wife changed that before she even moved here. Was
really,
the tea preference? Yeah, she was like,
yeah, I love tea now, and
I do
Americans don't drink that much tea. I think we're ranked what 30 something, 30 or
Yeah.
40 in the
Yeah.
world.
I was a very traditional before I went to Poland. I was a very traditional soda drinker. I drank soda with everything.
I grew up drinking soda. Yeah,
Yeah, and now I don't remember the last time I had a soda. And like I said, tea is now my caffeine preference.
yeah, yeah. You don't drink coffee, do you?
I don't I don't drink coffee.
See, I'm a big coffee drinker, and they have better coffee here, and the machines in all of the Agade stores, like appliances stores and stuff like that. They have machines that are like over $1,000 to make coffee.
Wow.
So the quality
always-
is definitely better.
I always laugh when we go there because my wife orders the Cava Americano. And I'm like, why are you ordering an American coffee while you're in Poland? I'm like, they got to have something better than that over here.
No, it's probably still better here.
Probably
than
still
in the
is,
US,
yeah.
Right? Yeah. No, but I mean, there's a ton of things besides, I mean,
Food. I think we talked about this once when we were talking about our food episode. Just that sour taste now that a lot of Polish food has. It's just like I'm used to that now.
yeah.
Like when you sit there
Barsz.
eating, some kielbasa. Okay, you got to have ogórki with it. You got to have that fermented taste at the end, right? Kapusta.
Yeah.
Like you said,
There's that- What is it? It's like pickle soup or something? I
there
don't
is
know the
pickle
name of
soup
it.
as well.
Yeah.
Yeah, I forget the name of it, but yeah.
Yeah.
But like you were saying, I think we were kind of going back and forth a little bit on this beforehand, and you were specifically talking about the borscht, and do you drink it out of a coffee cup? I was like, of course I
like that.
Of course I do.
I love that.
That is something we never would have done before we came to Poland for the first time.
Do you drink borscht at your home in the U.S.?
Yes. Yeah, absolutely.
Okay, so do you guys get like a packet or like one of those instant packets? Because I've never tried one of those here, or do you guys make it? Like
No, my
buy
wife makes
beads
everything homemade. I would say
Really?
that's a big thing here, and that's Polish in general, is that
Right.
my wife, like, rosół is like the base of like every soup, and so she's just constantly got a ton of rosół that she's made from scratch sitting somewhere. Like, I think I said this to you and JT the other day. We were outside. We were doing a very American thing. We were outside raking the leaves. You had mentioned this is a very American family tradition, is go outside and rake the leaves in the fall, right? As a group and everything like that. The kids jump in the leaf pile a little bit,
Yeah, the dog. Yeah.
and the dog and everything like that. So, and then I came inside, and my wife had no idea what to make for dinner yet, right? And so I just happened to mention, I'm like, it was like a chilly fall day here. I'm like, if I could have anything in the world to eat right now, it would be some tomato soup and some grilled cheese sandwiches, right? And she's like, I'll have it for you in 10 minutes, right? And she went and pulled the rosół she had out of the fridge, and she mixed in some tomato paste and potatoes, and sure enough, in 10 minutes I had tomato soup, and it was awesome.
Have you tried tomato soup with noodles?
Yep.
Because when my girlfriend says tomato soup, it's tomato soup with noodles.
Yeah.
And I like it. I really like it.
Yeah, a lot of
Very
their
interesting.
soups have noodles in it. Like, even like the chicken soup, I feel like they have more noodles in it than we have here
Yeah.
for our chicken soup.
Speaking about tomatoes and just food in general, there was actually a lot of food I didn't eat or like, or at least I thought I didn't in the U.S. before I came over. So, for example, tomatoes.
Okay, really?
I
You
didn't like tomatoes. I did
Okay.
not like tomatoes until I came over here.
Uh-huh.
Then I was just trying to be open minded and just trying to eat everything I could, really. And yeah, I like tomatoes now.
Do you have like the
even
plate of?
zapiekanki.
Oh
I didn't
my
even
God.
prefer that before. Yeah,
Mushrooms
Now I
in
love
general. I think mushrooms in general. That was my thing. I really didn't like mushrooms.
yeah. My thing was
beforehand.
mushrooms.
Yeah, now I love mushrooms.
Now I love them.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Zapiekanki, man. I don't know. Like, you sent me a picture the other day. I don't know what that was. You said it was like Zapakanki from the block.
Don't insult my girlfriend.
Like, you sent me a picture. I think it would have had like ham and cheese on it or something like that. And you're like, it's
Yeah,
Zapakanki.
yeah.
I was like, where are the mushrooms? And then I sent a picture of what I have here with the mushrooms and the cheese and the ketchup
It's
on
the
top.
Lublin version. How about that?
I would say another food that I have never eaten beforehand, before going to Poland, was beetroots.
Same. Yeah.
Like I said, like with the borscht now, even in like the shredded beetroots, on the side of like Sabove and things like that. My wife even told me the first time she gave it to me, she was like, "You need to try this. It's going to take you about 12 times, but then you're going to love it." Right?
Which one? Borscht?
Just like beetroots in general, like shredded beetroots.
Yeah. Okay.
And I tell you what, the first time I was like, "Nope,"
Yeah.
And sure enough, I gave her the benefit of the doubt. She said it's going to take like 12 times. I gave it the 12 times, and sure enough, I love it now. Like I have to have it on the side of things. I always say this about it, and the Poles always laugh when I say it. I was like, when you have really good, beetroots, because you can taste the dirt that it was like that it was in.
It's an earthy flavor.
You could definitely, it has that earthy flavor, and I'm like, I can taste the dirt, and they all start laughing when I say it, but I mean it as a compliment. I know it's a bad thing, but
yeah, my experience with beetroots before coming over to Poland was my dad eating beetroots, just in a can from Walmart. And just eating that just right out of the can, and the smell, like I just could not stand the smell or just the sight of it. I hated it. But I like beets now.
Yeah. Well, let's see. Okay, we'll touch on drinks a little bit because we don't want to stay on food too much. We already have an episode about food, but I would say the water with gas is not something I drank before going to Poland.
Yeah. Seltzer waters and all that.
The seltzer water, even when I got to my first few trips to Poland, I was like, I need the without gas water, yeah. But now, that's just something I drink. And the other thing is the temperature of the water. That's a big thing, right? Yeah. I don't care that all my water is room temperature anymore.
Yeah, and I used to.
And yes, the first few times to Poland, before Poland, it had to be cold. Usually had to have ice in it as well.
Yeah.
Now I'm just like, whatever. Like water just doesn't sit in our refrigerator anymore in this house.
Yep.
Even like it was funny because we don't go to restaurants that often. Maybe that's another change. Like my wife cooks most of our meals. We went maybe 2 weeks ago. We went to a restaurant, and they gave you the big glass of water filled with ice, right?
Yeah.
And I watched everybody sipping their water, and the looks on everybody's reaction to like, oh my god, this is so cold, Like my daughter was just like, I can't drink this. She's never drank cold water, Yeah. My wife was freaking out. I'm like, though now when like the ice hits your teeth, I'm like, this is too cold. I don't like this. Even my son, who only spends a couple days a week here, even he was just kind of like, he doesn't like cold water. He's gotten used to it.
Yeah.
So that's definitely a big change over the traditional Americanness. Is drinking room temperature water. I still have to have my cold beer. I'll say that.
Yeah, that has not changed for me either. Beer has to be cold.
Yeah, and vodka needs to be out of the freezer. For me, it has to be very cold.
Yeah, it has to be cold for sure.
Yeah.
But
yeah. So between the seltzer water and the tea, those are the big changes. And like I said, I don't drink soda anymore. Even when you go to Poland and you're drinking like shots of vodka, and they usually offer like 4 or 5 things to chase it with, I will go for the kompot or those kind of juicy drinks they have over, because usually soda is sitting there. But I'll usually go for those kind of things to chase with instead. Soda.
Yeah.
I would say one big thing, if we're not talking about food and drinks anymore, one big thing I would say is my views on consumerism have changed a lot.
That's
since
true.
Going to Poland. Yeah. I remember specifically that first trip to Poland. When I returned, I was kind of like, these people are much happier than me, and they have like when you look at their material
Less
things,
stuff.
it's like it's way less stuff. And I literally went and threw out everything in my house that I thought wasn't necessary. I just tried and whittled it down, and I've tried to keep. Sometimes you find yourself kind of getting carried away a little bit. The Americanist kicks back in again.
Consume.
Right, but I try to keep like my material possessions at a certain level now.
Yeah.
And like if it gets over that, I'm like, okay, something's got to go. Like that kind of thing now. Because we just we have a bad habit here of just kind of like buying things on top of things on top of things, and when you actually acquire something you don't actually value it at all, you're just like, okay, I have that now, put it on the pile. What's the next thing?
What's next? Right.
Right.
Yeah. For sure. To me, it was definitely liberating coming here because I only came with 2 checked bags.
Yeah.
So being able to fit everything in just 2 checked bags, sell the car, sell everything else, liberating.
Yeah. Yeah. That I still don't know how you did that. To be honest, we will see someday. If I ever move to Poland, how much stuff I'll need to bring. But man, I can't imagine. Like I'm looking.
I remember I told you and JT at the time because you guys were like, "How are you guys sending? How are you going to send all your stuff over, man?" And I remember I told you guys, I was like, "Yeah, I'm just bringing 2 checked bags," and you guys just got quiet. You didn't say anything. I could tell you guys were a bit shocked.
Right. I immediately started figuring out how could I fit everything I need into 2 checked bags. I don't know. So obviously there's the, we covered this in the last episode, our episode about media. There's the media. I don't know. It was a question I was thinking about throwing over to the group. Do you still, when you're like, I don't know, sometimes you're in a certain mood and you just want to hear a song. You just want to play, it's just like either you're frustrated or you're excited because it's the weekend or whatever and you just want to play a song. What's your language do you go for? Do you still go for like American music that you grew up with? Do you go for a Polish song? Like, does it vary? What do you do now?
I mean, it just depends what mood I'm in. I mean, if I'm in, so like if I'm personally into like a 70s, 80s vibe, it's only Polish.
Okay.
So Lady Pank, other artists like that.
Right.
And then, I mean, if I don't know, it just depends for me.
Right.
I mean, what is it for you?
I mean, the big thing is, I think I send you these pictures on Fridays. Is usually on the Fridays at the beginning of the week, and I'll send you whatever disco polo song I'm playing at that. I think, like outside of parties, I think Friday you just finished work is the perfect moment to play disco polo music. It's
true.
More so in the summer than in the winter, but it's like, okay, let's get in the proper mood for the weekend. Kind of thing,
The last taxi I was in, actually, he was playing disco polo. And,
oh yeah.
Yeah, it was a fun time.
Lublin. Okay. Did you guys talk about it?
No. No. He kept talking about like his job and work, and I didn't even know what he was saying actually.
Okay.
Yeah. But
nice.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, just in general, again, we covered this in the media episode, last episode, but my go-to shows now are Polish. I would say more often than not, I'll play an American or a Polish song when I need to listen to something. I think the big thing is, like when I'm weightlifting or resistance training, I'll still go for the American. It's basically like the 80s, the like Metallica, the Guns N' Roses, the stuff I grew up with back then is usually, I think you gave me some suggestions the other day, and they were American songs.
I'm in the next group. I'm in like Disturbed,
Right.
Five Finger Death Punch, Slipknot.
Right.
I'm in that group.
Yeah. That's specifically. I'm still straight American on that part.
Yeah.
I think purely because I don't know anything equivalent in Polish. Yeah. Maybe Afro Mental might be close to it. That's the closest thing I can think. Maybe. But even they're kind of like all over the place with kind of songs they play and stuff like that.
Yeah. Do they even make music anymore, or are they just doing the voice stuff and chilling?
I think the last thing I heard from them is they had made like a song for a movie or something like that. But I don't think they're like. I think they do the voice more than anything else these days.
They're just chilling now.
Yeah.
Just going with this topic, I think that honestly I feel more impatient now, like having to deal with offices with documents and things like that. sometimes it takes forever, and I'm just kind of patient with it now. I'm just like,
Right.
all right.
I mean, that's funny because according to my wife, maybe it's just specifically my wife. My wife is very impatient, right? And she found me to be the patient one when we're here. Right? I'm the one that's calm, and she's the one whatever. But I feel myself in general taking on more, like, we've said it before. You and I are the kind of person, I think it's different than typical Americans, where when we're in Poland, we kind of try to tone down the Americanness, right? Not like you. I don't really see you be so stereotypical American even when you're in America.
Well, I have worn a baseball cap
That's
a couple
true.
times, yeah, in some vlogs, and I think back on it, I'm like, wow, that was very American,
Right.
even inside restaurants and stuff. Yeah.
But I think in general, like, even I imagine it could even happen to you more. Now that you're there for 100 days. Even when I'm there for 2 weeks, I feel like like I develop like this different personality when I'm there that kind of like more blends in. Like it's still me, but it's like it's shifted a little bit, right?
Yeah.
And I find that when every time I come back from Poland, a little more of that stays with me, right? Like the things they typically say about Polish people.
So running with that, then, how people will say in their second language they kind of have a different personality. Do you have that
Absolutely.
at all?
Absolutely.
Yeah, I think with me it's definitely usually more straightforward.
Yeah.
Just because, like, there's not as many like filler words in sentences where you're trying to be nice or like lean it up to whatever.
Right.
I don't really find that. It's kind of like just straightforward.
Yeah, and like, I find like a lot of things that I do now that I didn't do previously. Like that whole thing of like you said, a lot of filler talk and
Yeah.
a lot of pleasantries, and
Yeah.
I don't really, a lot of saying things you don't really mean because you don't want to hurt the feelings of who we were talking.
Right.
I've kind of like between being in Poland and my wife, when she's here, she appreciates me communicating her more like a Pole would, like when like the traditional cases when a woman puts a dress on, right, and they want to know if they look good or something like that. An American will never say you look bad, or you're always the best looking thing on the planet, right? It's like a trap, right, to get yourself in trouble. She wants to actually know what I think, right? and so I'll tell her. And so, I'll tell her. And like she's like, I appreciate the honesty, You would think it would get me in trouble, but it doesn't.
Right.
And so like I've kind of like gotten into that. It's almost like my wife and I, because we mainly speak in English, but it's almost like we have like a Polish type relationship in English where I'm just kind of like very straightforward with her, very honest with her. There's no bullshit,
Yeah.
And it was like I was saying the other day in our chat, like, JT, we were talking about something, and I was like, I said something like, I think he thought I wouldn't say something like that to my wife, and I'm like, everything I've said to all you guys, I will say to my wife, and she knows I'll say it to her, and she knows because I don't hide it, I just say what's on my mind, and I don't hide it from her. There's no real. It's almost like that lack of Polish filter, lack of tact sometimes, and just telling people exactly what you think. It makes our relationship better, stronger, because she knows I'm not hiding anything from her, and she can trust me in situations, because if I was thinking, something devious or whatever, I would tell her about it, right? So that's definitely a change in my personality for the positive, I would say, over like American, everything's great. Hide everything, everything's, you're not fat, everything's perfect, that kind of thing.
Totally. I think also with me, it's probably because I lack some of the words too. So I'm just like, it's all straightforward.
I find that when I'm in Poland too, like it's getting a little bit better every time I go, and you'll definitely find it getting a little bit better. But I definitely talk straight to the point in Polish because that's all I'm capable of at this point, Definitely, if somebody asked me something in English, like you can see it on this podcast, you ask me a question and I talk for like 20 minutes, right? Whereas if we had this, if I was having the same conversation in Polish, I would be much shorter with everything.
Like a few sentences.
Yeah. So as you were mentioning before, about the different personalities based on what language, do you find you party different in Poland than you do in America?
Define that party different. Okay.
Like the traditional case we've always covered is the American versus Polish wedding, right? When I'm in an American wedding, I will just kind of sit there having conversations with people. Maybe my wife and I will get up to dance. Tend to not too often, because people, like, it's rare for people to get up and dance and know how to dance.
Sits,
and everybody's
it's
like,
all uncomfortable.
it's all everybody wants to talk about. Oh my God, look how you dance, blah blah blah. And like make a big deal about it. And I don't really like people making a big deal about me in those kind of situations.
Yeah.
Especially somebody else's wedding. I'm like, they should be the big deal, not me. Whereas when I'm in Poland for a wedding or something like that, a good song comes on, I'm probably the first one grabbing my wife and going on out on the tape on the dance floor, because I know eventually everybody's going to be out there, and that's going to be the thing.
Right.
I don't know if you've experienced anything like that.
Not really. I'm not a party person.
You still need to go to a Polish wedding.
Yeah, I still haven't been to a Polish wedding. So,
right.
Yeah, I mean, the only thing I could say is that I don't know. Yeah,
I think in general, the parties, even like just the gathering at houses, are a little bit different here versus there, and like it requires a different kind of mental. Like, because over here you're having, like I said, we had this get together with my neighbors, right? And it's very artificial conversations, right?
Yeah. How is work doing?
Yeah, you don't really care what you're asking each other, and they don't really care, but you need to fill. You need to fill the void, right?
I hope they're not watching this.
Right. Whereas I feel like in Poland, when you're at like house parties, like these kind of things, you can get yourself into some really deep conversations with people and really get to know people, and especially with Poles, they have a couple drinks and they open up a little bit. But it's a completely different vibe a lot of times than in an American house.
Yeah.
And I've definitely had to get used to that, and I kind of developed, and like I think in general, like my wife will always ask me here, I meet somebody new. What do they do for a living? I don't know. They ask me, like the BS questions that Americans usually ask. Now she's asking me because she assumes I must have asked them,
Right.
And I tell her now, I'm like, after being in Poland and having these conversations in Poland, what people do for a living, I find it like the least interesting thing about them. I don't care. I want to know something interesting. I want to, like the stories you and I tell on this podcast, those are the things I want to hear. I want to hear about some adventure they've been on. I want to understand why they are the way they are because of things that have happened to them in the past, right?
Right.
To simply talk to somebody about their job, it's like, who cares? Yeah,
it's all just surface stuff. And
right.
Yeah, it's that thing with, I guess, just America in general. It's just like, your job is your life in a way. And then here it's just like it's something else. It's different,
right? So, like nobody talks about jobs over there.
No, no one's ever asked me actually.
Yeah.
Like after, like once I start talking to someone, it's like not in the immediate questions of what they're gonna ask.
Yeah. Just to, I guess, to wrap it all up, then that's one of the interesting things is we find ourselves. I mean, me more so than you now. You're in Poland 100 days. Knock on wood, 100 more. But
Thanks.
Like I said, I find myself now in these situations where I have to, like, I'm in America. I need to act American to kind of blend in or things, and I'm in Poland. I need to act more Polish, and I find it, like I said in my video, it's like my wife and I have taken the best bits of both worlds and kind of blended into this thing that both of us are comfortable with. I don't know if it's 50% American, 50% Polish. I don't know if it's 75% Polish, 25% American. It's some kind of mix that works for her and I. But all of a sudden, when you're in situations where somebody isn't in on that mix, I guess we'll say, right? When you have like your straight American friends, right? And then like you're sitting there in a party and it's like, I'm like, I don't know if I fit in as well as I used to.
Yeah.
But the same thing when I'm in Poland. Sometimes I find myself
Right.
in situations I'm like, I don't know if I fit in here as well as I used to. It's
It's gonna be
definitely
interesting to see like how that differs as we get older too.
that's the other thing is like how it changes as we get older. How it you just purely being in Poland all the time. I eventually, again, knock on wood for me, I'll be in Poland at some point, and just it's a running topic. It'll be interesting to see how it goes.
All right, guys, so that's pretty much it for this episode. Thank you for watching. We'll see you in the next one. Cheers.